If you've been on social media in the last day or so, you've probably seen that the PS5 Pro is trending, and that's because of a new report that purports to have specs for the PS5 Pro, as well as a target release date and a bunch of other information. After looking at it though, I'm less convinced than ever that we're getting a PS5 Pro, or at least a PS5 Pro that matches these rumors. After all, we've all been impressed and blown away by the latest Spider-Man 2 trailer. People were puzzling over whether screenshots released by Insomniac were just really good concept art or whether they were in-game screenshots. And I think that says a lot about how people feel about the power of the current generation of consoles. There's really not a lot of headroom to move up at this point, or not an obvious need for improvement, but that doesn't stop people from speculating. Obviously, everybody's going to want a more powerful console. New hardware releases are exciting, but I don't think it's time yet, and I'm going to break down several reasons why in the rest of this video, so stay tuned. First up, though, is the claim that the PS5 Pro will play games in 8K, and I think that is probably the biggest red flag in this latest rumor. If you don't know about the rumor, let's go ahead and break that down first. This comes from keytogaming.com, and they wrote the following. It's understood that Trinity, the PS5 Pro's codename, has been in development since early 2022, with sources citing that although the rumors of a canceled PlayStation 5 Pro project are always fun to read, Trinity has been the only project in the works for the Pro model. Despite dates being tentative, it's understood that demo events for the PS5 Pro are already ongoing, with the majority of studios receiving development kits by late November 2023. They go on to say, although the Pro's specs were difficult to pin down, admittingly due to my lack of technological prowess, sources have stated that Trinity will have probably 30 WGP and 18,000 MTS memory. And I'm fairly technical. I build hardware for fun. I've built several PCs in my lifetime, and I had to Google these terms. WGP I could not find a match for, and maybe I will admit if I'm wrong and I just don't know what that stands for, but I couldn't find it. And 18,000 MTS is mega transfers per second, and I haven't heard memory rated that way in a very long time, since I think the days of DDR3 memory. These days we're on DDR6 memory, and the PlayStation 5 doesn't even mention a mega transfer per second. It doesn't mention that as a specification for the hardware. Even if you look up the tech specs, nobody lists that kind of stuff anymore. So it's kind of like the, equivalent of saying your console has so many bits these days. It's just not something people discuss. So it's a very weird thing to trot out, and it kind of makes me believe that whoever wrote this article was probably fed false information by somebody pulling the wool over their eyes, just trying to sound super technical. The other red flag for me in this is that this website, keytogaming.com, while they may certainly have sources within Sony, I find it strange that the usual suspects, Imran Khan, Jason Schreier, are not talking about this rumor at all, because again, try to check with trusted sources on this stuff. But let's put all of that aside. Let's put aside the fact that the rumors are improbable, and let's talk about the realistic landscape of the gaming environment in 2023, 24, and even 25. Right now, 8K TVs are nowhere to be found, so I don't know why Sony would be selling an 8K console. If you talk about raw numbers, in 2021, less than 500,000 8K TVs were sold, compared to the millions and millions that are sold worldwide every year. I believe it accounts for less than 10% of all TVs sold in the world. So 8K TVs are still priced out of the reach of most people who are going to buy these consoles. There's not a whole lot of 8K content out there. YouTube has just started doing 8K content. I don't believe Netflix or any of those services currently have 8K, but I could be wrong. And frankly, that kind of underlines my point further, is that as somebody who is an early adopter of most technological products, I don't care about 8K yet. I haven't been given a reason to care. I haven't seen anything that blows me away when it comes to, 4K is still perfect for me. I have no issue with the 4K TVs I have in my house. I've never thought, man, these could look so much better if I just had a better display. Games are not hamstrung by the displays they're on. When we're talking about our games that we play, if you're playing a Switch, you're still playing in 1080p. But if you're playing PS5, 4K games are still at a point where they don't perform so incredibly well that, beefier hardware would help things out, or they don't perform so incredibly well that they're, outstripping what the hardware is capable of. The hardware is still very much designed for 4K games. We're talking, games like Cyberpunk still don't run at like a perfect solid 60 FPS, and you may use that as an excuse to bump up hardware, but my point is, a possible PS5 Pro is much, much more likely to be a 4K powerhouse of a machine than an 8K gaming station. We're just not ready for 8K gaming. There's not enough compute power in current technology to give you a good console quality. And I say that very importantly because console quality means that, you don't have the need to really configure your settings. And while console games have been trending that way for a little bit, they still aren't at a point where they're nearly as complex as PC settings. We don't have nearly the amount of freedom that PC gamers do over how their games render and perform. And I don't think that console gamers necessarily want that. So if you're talking about an 8K gaming machine, I don't know that you can get that down into a console size or at a console price point. And what I mean by that is we need to look no further than the current 8K capable card on the market. And there's really only one that comes to mind when I mentioned that. If you know what is going on in the GPU space, that's the NVIDIA RTX 4090. And again, it barely makes 8K work. We're talking about 8K by way of DLSS, which is deep learning super sampling, which is a technology I've discussed in the past as being maybe the means for the Switch to get higher than 1080p resolution. Because what it essentially does is it uses quote unquote AI machine learning to upscale your image to make it look better. It's a fantastic technology. It works really well, and it generates better picture quality, essentially. But it's not true native resolution, right? It's taking an internal resolution of, let's just say 1080p and turning it into 4K. And right now, the most expensive card on the market, again, that NVIDIA RTX 4090, uses that technology to get up to 8K. And even then, games like Cyberpunk, and not even on maxed out settings, will run at just around 60 FPS. To say nothing of other games and what games will become more demanding in the future. Cyberpunk is certainly a great benchmark tool for a PC game or hardware to show what it's capable of. It's a gorgeous game, but running it in 8K right now, especially anything without any type of super sampling, is going to be a pipe dream. But more importantly, there are two primary factors to consider when thinking about taking that kind of horsepower and turning it into a console. One is that the RTX 4090 is like the size of a house. It is a giant graphics card. It is nearly the size of the PlayStation 5 by itself. It is massive because it throws off a lot of heat and requires a lot of power. So it is not going to be shrunk down into a console form factor anytime soon. And the second, arguably more important consideration is the price. The RTX 4090 costs as much as 3 PlayStation 5s. It is triple the price of the PS5. And for Sony to bring that down into something that can sit comfortably in your living room and not cost you more than the living room it's in is no small feat. And I just don't think that the need is there to manufacture that. Sony still remembers what happened when they debuted the PlayStation 3 at $599 US, and I don't think that they're anxious to repeat that for a minimal return on investment, because again, you're talking about people who have an 8K TV, which are very few, people who have the money to spend on something that costs more than the PS5, which is at $500 and shows no sign of getting a price cut anytime soon, because again, why would it? More importantly, and perhaps most importantly, your consumer base doesn't want it. I don't know anybody who has a PS5 who thinks the graphics are terrible, who thinks that there are improvements to be made on the visual front to the point that they would want an 8K console. Do I think that a PS5 Pro could happen? Yes. Do I think this rumor is true? Absolutely not. Every single red flag that exists in the gaming rumor community exists within this report. It is making technical claims that make no sense. It is targeting a date that makes no sense, and its primary feature is one that makes no sense. And more importantly, the people whom I would trust to accurately report this information have nothing to say on the topic because they haven't heard it. And so, you know, if you're talking about again, Jason Schreier, Jeff Grubb, Imran Khan, those people are in positions to know this, and there's no way, and I don't mean any disrespect, but there's no way that a heretofore unheard of gaming site scooped every single person in the industry and got accurate information on a PS5 Pro that runs 8K and does all this cool stuff. I mean, would I like that hardware to exist? Absolutely. But I'm also not going to buy an 8K TV until they're not $3,000 each. And I'm certainly not going to buy a console just to go buy a $3,000 TV. So I would say take this rumor with a massive fistful of salt. It's definitely not worth it. The PS5 Pro may be real, but it's certainly not this one. That's about all I have to say on the topic. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you'd like to hear me rant more about fake hardware, follow us. I will find it as it arises and I will tell you what I think about it. But thank you for watching. Thanks for subscribing if you're not subscribed yet, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye. Wait, before I leave you, I also forgot there's the small matter of the code name. I mentioned I would say that to you. Trinity makes no sense. So if you look at the PS4 code names, they were all related to the Matrix, like Morpheus and Neo. However, PS5 code names, or at least what is widely believed to be PS5 code names, have all been named after the works of William Shakespeare. So why would they suddenly go back to the naming convention for all their PS4 projects? That again doesn't make sense. Code names are often related to one another. I don't quite know how that all works, but I do know that it would be very strange for them to take a PS4 code naming scheme and then apply it to just a single product in the PS5 pipeline where all the others seem to have these Shakespearean names. So again, just another hole to poke in that rumor. There's too many of them. There are frankly too many of them, but that's the last one, I promise.